They say the universe speaks in numbers, and 3I-ATLAS just confirmed that. This isn't a random celestial object. It's a message, a spiritual signal written across the night. Its name hides a code, 3I-ATLAS, a sequence that describes not astronomy, but awakening, a trinity, an identity, the bearer of heaven. And ever since it appeared, people everywhere have been feeling it. Sleeplessness, anxiety, a strange spiritual vertigo, as if reality itself is retuning. What if this isn't a coincidence? What if the comet isn't just passing by, but reflecting us? Stay with me until the end, because by the end of tonight's journey, you'll understand the hidden meaning in its name, and why this single visitor from deep space might hold the key to what's happening inside all of us. If this mystery continues to have you hooked the way it has me, make sure to hit like and subscribe so you don't miss a single update as this unfolds in real time. Drop a comment with where you're tuning in from, what time it is there, and what you think of the hidden meaning the name 3I-ATLAS carries. And if you want to help this community grow, share this video on X, Facebook, Reddit, or even just in your group chats. You're the reason we can keep chasing stories like this, so thank you for having our back. Part 1. Breaking news and the code unveiled. Something just appeared in our sky that shouldn't be there. You probably scrolled past the headlines. Maybe you saw a blurry image of what looked like a smudged star. Maybe you thought, another comet, and kept moving. But this isn't another comet. This is the third confirmed interstellar object ever detected in human history. The third visitor from beyond our solar system. And it has a name that might just explain everything you've been feeling lately. They're calling it 3I-ATLAS. Officially discovered in 2025, this object has been quietly growing brighter, more active, more impossible to ignore. Astronomers are tracking it. Telescopes are pointed at it. And the data coming back is strange. This thing isn't behaving like a typical comet. It's releasing jets of material. It's developing a tail that shouldn't exist at this distance from the sun. It's throwing dust and vapour into space at rates that don't match our models. Water molecules, nickel vapour, all streaming off this visitor like it's trying to tell us something. But here's what nobody's talking about. The name. 3I-ATLAS, look at it again. Not as a bureaucratic designation, but as a code. 3 plus I, the number 3, the letter I. What if this isn't random? What if buried in the technical naming system of astronomy something else is speaking? Let me break it down for you. The 3 represents the third interstellar object. That's the official explanation. But 3 is also the number of cycles. Birth, life, death. Beginning, middle, end, thesis, antithesis, synthesis. Every spiritual tradition on Earth recognizes the triad as fundamental. The Trinity in Christianity, the Trimurti in Hinduism, the 3 states of matter, the 3 dimensions of space. 3 is the number of manifestation. It's the pattern that brings things into being. And then there's the I. Officially, it stands for interstellar, but I is also identity, the observer, the self, the conscious witness behind all experience. When you say I am, you're invoking the most fundamental recognition possible. You exist, you perceive. You're the point through which the universe looks at itself. 3 plus I. Cycle plus consciousness. Manifestation plus witness. The code inside the name suggests this object isn't just passing through our neighbourhood, on its way to somewhere else. It's arrived at precisely this moment to trigger something, to reflect something, to force a reckoning with something humanity has been avoiding. And if you think I'm reading too much into a technical designation, consider this. We are living through the strangest time in modern history. Everyone feels it. The anxiety, the pressure, the sense that old structures are collapsing faster than new ones can form. People are quitting jobs without backup plans. Relationships that seemed stable are dissolving overnight. You wake up and your internal compass is spinning. Nothing feels solid anymore. We've all been asking the same question in different ways. What is happening to us? What if 3I-ATLAS is the answer? This comet came from outside. It's following a hyperbolic orbit, which means it's not bound to our sun. It came from the void between stars, accelerated through our system, and it will leave again, never to return. It's a messenger from elsewhere, and messages don't arrive randomly. They arrive when someone needs to hear them. The trajectory is confirmed. NASA published the orbital elements. This thing is moving at 25 kilometers per second relative to the Sun. It came in from the direction of the constellation Lyra. It will swing past Earth's orbit, reach its closest approach to the Sun, and then vanish back into interstellar space. One pass, one chance, one window. But while it's here, it's active. Live science reported jets of material erupting from the nucleus. These aren't the gentle sublimations of a normal comet. These are violent outbursts. The tail is growing. The coma is expanding. For an object that's supposed to be a frozen relic from another star system, it's behaving like it's alive, like it's waking up. So let me pose the question nobody in the mainstream is asking. What if this comet isn't here by accident? What if its arrival, its activity, its name are all part of a larger pattern we're only beginning to recognize? What if 3I-ATLAS is holding up a mirror to humanity, showing us exactly what we are in this moment? Observers trapped in cycles, consciousness moving through birth, death, and rebirth. Witnesses to our own transformation. The science is clear. This object exists. It's real. It's out there right now, glowing in telescopes, shedding material, tracing a path through our sky that will never repeat. But science can only tell us what it is and where it came from. It can't tell us why. It can't tell us what it means. And meaning is what we're starving for right now. In the ancient world, comets were omens. They appeared before wars, plagues, revolutions. They marked transitions, the death of kings, the birth of new eras. We've spent centuries dismissing that as superstition. But what if our ancestors weren't wrong? What if they were just describing in their language what we're about to describe in ours? That certain cosmic events don't just happen to us. They happen through us. They activate something. They trigger something. They force us to see what we've been refusing to look at. And if that's true, then 3I-ATLAS isn't just a visitor. It's a catalyst. It's the spark that ignites the shift we've all been feeling building for years. The shift from one way of being to another. From unconsciousness to awareness. From cycle to transcendence. But there's more. The name carries another layer. Atlas. The titan who held up the heavens. The one who bore the weight of the sky on his shoulders. In myth, Atlas was punished for rebelling against the gods. He was condemned to hold up the cosmos forever, unable to move, unable to rest. And now we have a comet named after him, arriving from beyond, carrying something we can't quite define yet but can definitely feel. What weight is this comet asking us to hold? Or what weight is it finally lifting? We're going to explore all of this. The symbolism, the karmic implications, the physical symptoms people are reporting, the urgency of this moment. But first, you need to understand something fundamental. This isn't a conspiracy theory. This isn't New Age fantasy. This is a real object with real effects, and the only question is whether those effects are limited to the physical realm, or whether they extend into something larger. Because if consciousness is fundamental, if awareness shapes reality, then an object named 3I-ATLAS, arriving at this exact moment in human history, isn't random. It's synchronicity at the scale of solar systems, and the message encoded in its name might be the most important thing you hear all year. So buckle in, because we're about to decode something that changes everything. Part 2. Naming, symbolism, and archetype. Let's start with the boring explanation. The one astronomers will give you if you ask. 3I-ATLAS. The 3 means it's the third confirmed interstellar object. The I means interstellar. ATLAS stands for the Asteroid Terrestrial Impact Last Alert System, the survey in Hawaii that first spotted it. Simple, technical, no mystery, just a bureaucratic label assigned to a piece of space rock following standard protocols. Except, here's the thing about protocols. They don't exist in a vacuum. Every naming system is a language, and every language carries meaning beyond its literal definitions. When you call something by a name, you're invoking something. You're linking it to everything else that name has ever touched. And the name 3I-ATLAS touches some very old, very powerful archetypes. The number 3 shows up everywhere humans have ever tried to make sense of existence. It's not arbitrary. 3 is the minimum number needed to create a pattern. 1 point is just a location. 2 points make a line, but 3 points make a plane. They make a shape. They make something that can hold meaning. And humans have recognized this for thousands of years. The Egyptians had Osiris, Isis, and Horus, the triple goddess of maiden, mother, and crone. The Hindus have Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. creator, preserver, destroyer. Christianity has Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. 3 persons in one God. Even if you strip away all religious context, you still have the fundamental structure of beginning, middle, and end. Every story ever told follows this pattern. Every experience you've ever had moves through these 3 phases. 3 is the number of time itself. Past, present, future. It's the rhythm of breath. Inhale, pause, exhale. It's the structure of matter. Solid, liquid, gas. It's how transformation happens. You start as one thing. You break down. You become something new. Birth, death, rebirth. Over and over. That's the wheel. That's the cycle. That's the 3. And now we have an interstellar object marked with this number, arriving from outside our system, passing through once, never to return. A visitor from elsewhere showing us the pattern, reminding us that we're in a cycle whether we acknowledge it or not. The 3rd interstellar object. The 3rd wake-up call. And if you missed the first 2, this one might be harder to ignore, but the 3 is only half the code. The other half is the I. Officially interstellar, but also the most loaded letter in any alphabet. I, the self, the observer, the one who experiences. When you strip away everything else, what's left? I am. The irreducible fact of awareness. You can doubt everything around you, but you can't doubt that something is here doing the doubting. That's the I. That's the witness. And spiritual traditions have been pointing at this for millennia. The Eye of Horus in Egypt, the 3rd eye in Hinduism, the all-seeing eye in Western mysticism, the eye that watches the 3, the consciousness that witnesses the cycle without being trapped by it. You are not just the thing being born and dying and being reborn. You're also the awareness that watches it happen. You're the 3 and the I at the same time. So here we have a comet from interstellar space with both encoded in its name. Cycle and witness, process and awareness, the dance of manifestation, and the stillness of observation. And it arrives now in 2025 when humanity is collectively experiencing the most intense transformation in living memory. Coincidence? Maybe. Or maybe something else. Let's talk about ATLAS. The survey is named after the Titan, and the Titan has a story. In Greek mythology, Atlas led the Titans in war against the Olympian gods. He lost, and as punishment, Zeus condemned him to hold up the sky forever. Not the earth, like the popular image suggests. The sky, the heavens, the weight of the cosmos itself pressing down on his shoulders for eternity. There's something almost unbearably sad about Atlas. He's frozen in place, unable to move, unable to rest, bearing a burden that was never meant to be borne by anyone. And yet he holds. He doesn't collapse. He doesn't give up. He just stands there, shoulders bent, holding the universe in place. Now ask yourself what humanity has been holding. What weight have we been carrying that we were never meant to carry? The trauma of ancestors, the damage to the planet, the systems of oppression and extraction and endless growth. The lie that we have to keep everything going or it all falls apart. We're Atlas. We've been Atlas for a long time, and we're exhausted. So what does it mean that a comet named after him is passing through right now? Is it reminding us of the burden, or is it offering a way to finally set it down? Is it saying, you've held this long enough? Is it giving permission to let the sky fall so something new can take its place? Because here's what nobody tells you about Atlas. In some versions of the myth, he's eventually freed. Hercules takes the weight for a moment. Perseus turns him to stone with the head of Medusa, ending his suffering. The burden is lifted, the cycle completes, the 3 resolves, and the eye that was trapped in eternal punishment finally gets to rest. What if 3I-ATLAS is the signal that the weight is about to shift? What if its arrival marks the moment when humanity stops holding up a dying system and finally lets it transform? Birth, death, rebirth, the cycle completing, and the witness, the I, recognizing that it was never the thing being transformed. It was always the awareness watching the transformation happen. Mainstream science doesn't talk like this. Astronomers will tell you I'm projecting meaning onto a random celestial event. They'll say the name is just a label, nothing more, and they're not wrong. There's no mechanism by which a comet's designation could encode mystical significance. Except language doesn't work through mechanisms. Language works through resonance, through association, through the accumulated weight of every time a symbol has been used before. When you call something 3I-ATLAS, you're linking it to everything 3 has ever meant, everything I has ever meant, everything Atlas has ever meant, and whether you intend that or not, the meaning comes through. The name speaks, and those of us listening hear it. The question isn't whether the scientists who named it intended all this. The question is whether the universe has a sense of irony, whether synchronicity operates at scales larger than we're comfortable admitting, whether the patterns we see in stars and numbers and names are patterns we're imposing or patterns we're discovering. And here's the thing, it doesn't actually matter which, because either way, the pattern is there. Either way, we're living through it. Either way, 3I-ATLAS is in our sky right now, active and bright and impossible to ignore. And either way, the code in its name points to exactly what we're all experiencing. The cycle, the witness, the wait, the transformation. So what happens next? Part 3. The Karmic Audit Thesis. Imagine you're living your life, doing your thing, and suddenly someone shows up with a ledger. Not a person, something bigger. Something that doesn't speak in words but in circumstances. And this something starts going through everything you've been avoiding, every pattern you've been repeating, every truth you've been denying, every place where you've been performing instead of being authentic. And it doesn't ask permission, it just surfaces everything at once. Old memories, unfinished business, relationships that need to end or transform, jobs that no longer fit, beliefs that were never really yours, all of it, coming up simultaneously, demanding attention, refusing to be ignored anymore. That's what a karmic audit feels like. And that's what's happening right now. People are calling it different things. The Great Awakening, the shift, the quickening. But underneath all those labels is the same experience. The feeling that everything hidden is being revealed. Everything unresolved is demanding resolution. Everything false is being exposed. And it's not gentle. It's not gradual. It's sudden, overwhelming, and absolutely relentless. And it started right around the time 3I-ATLAS became visible. Now, before you dismiss this as New Age correlation without causation, let me be clear. There's no scientific paper linking comet activity to human psychological shifts. No peer-reviewed mechanism by which an icy visitor from interstellar space could trigger mass introspection. The connection I'm proposing isn't causal in the way physics defines causation. It's synchronistic. It's the universe speaking in metaphor, and metaphors are how meaning works. But let's ground this in something concrete. 3I-ATLAS isn't just sitting there inert, it's active. Futurism reported that this comet is releasing water vapour and nickel compounds at unexpected distances from the sun. It's producing jets of material, it's shedding layers, it's literally purging what it's been carrying through interstellar space. Releasing it, letting it go, transforming in real time as it moves through our system. Sound familiar? Because that's exactly what's happening to us. We're releasing, we're shedding, we're purging layers of conditioning and trauma and false identity that we've been carrying for years, maybe lifetimes. And it's uncomfortable, and it's exhausting, and it feels like we're falling apart. But what if we're not falling apart? What if we're finally letting go of what was never ours to carry? The audit isn't punishment. That's the first thing to understand. It's not karma in the sense of cosmic revenge. It's karma in the sense of balancing, completion, resolution. You've been running certain programs for a long time. Some of them served you once, some of them never did. But all of them are outdated now, and the comet's arrival, with its code of 3 plus I, is the signal that it's time to clear the ledger. Birth, death, rebirth. That's the 3. You can't skip the death part. You can't go straight from what you were to what you're becoming. There has to be a dissolution, an ending, a release, and that's the phase we're in. The death phase. The part where everything that doesn't serve the new version of you gets composted, turned back into raw material, made available for something else. And the I. The I is the part that watches it happen without being destroyed by it. The witness consciousness that remains stable even as everything around it and within it transforms. You are not the thing falling apart. You are the awareness watching the thing fall apart. That's the liberation. That's the key. The audit happens to your patterns, your programming, your personas. It doesn't happen to you. You're the one taking inventory. But here's where it gets collective. It's not just individuals going through this. It's everyone. Look around. Governments are unstable. Economies are volatile. Climate is shifting. Technology is accelerating beyond our ability to integrate it. Old systems that have been running for decades or centuries are breaking down, and new ones haven't fully formed yet. We're in the gap, the void, the space between stories, and people feel it. The anxiety is real, the disorientation is real. Talk to anyone right now and they'll tell you something feels off. Time feels weird. Reality feels thin. The future feels uncertain in a way that's different from normal uncertainty. It's not just, I don't know what's going to happen, it's, I don't know if the rules still apply. That's the audit. The cosmic check-in. The universe asking humanity, so what have you been doing with all this consciousness? What have you built? What have you destroyed? What are you ready to release? What are you ready to become? And 3I-ATLAS is the messenger, not the cause, but the symbol, the marker, the thing in the sky that says, yes, this is real. This is happening. Pay attention. Some people are resisting, fighting to hold on to what was, trying to make the old structures work just a little longer. But the energy required to maintain denial is becoming unsustainable. The cracks are too obvious. The contradictions are too sharp. You can feel the effort it takes to pretend everything is normal. And that effort is burning people out. Others are surrendering, letting go, admitting they don't know, walking away from jobs, relationships, identities that were never authentic anyway. And it's terrifying. But it's also liberating. Because once you stop holding up what was never meant to last, you finally have energy for what wants to come next. The comet doesn't care which choice you make. It's not judging. It's just passing through, shedding its own layers, following its own trajectory. But it's here, and its presence is a reminder. You're in the cycle, the three, and you're also the witness, the I. You're both the process and the awareness of the process, and that dual nature is what allows transformation to happen without destruction of the essential self. There's a reason this is the third interstellar object, not the first, not the 10th, the third, enough to establish a pattern, enough to say, this isn't a fluke, this is a rhythm, and you're part of it now. 107p, Oumuamua was the first, 2I Borisov was the second, and now 3I-ATLAS, each one stranger than the last, each one arriving with less warning and more activity, each one forcing us to expand our definition of what's possible, and each one corresponds to escalating global tension. Oumuamua appeared in 2017. Political upheaval, social, division starting to crack open. Borisov in 2019, right before the pandemic, right before the world shut down and everyone was forced to stop and look at their lives, and now 3I-ATLAS in 2025, right as we're collectively deciding whether to rebuild what was or finally build something new. The audit is accelerating, the ledger is being balanced faster, and the comet is the timestamp, the marker in the sky that says, this moment, right here, this is when it happens. You can call it metaphor, you can call it synchronicity, you can call it pattern recognition run amok, but you can't call it nothing, because something is happening. Everyone feels it. And 3I-ATLAS, with its code of cycle plus witness, is the perfect symbol for this exact moment. So the question isn't whether the audit is real. The question is what you're going to do about it. What are you holding that needs to be released? What cycle are you completing? What version of yourself is dying so a new one can be born? And who is the eye that watches it all? Because the comet is temporary. It's passing through. But the shift it represents is permanent. Part 4. Physical symptoms and spiritual vertigo. Your body knows something is happening before your mind does. That's the first thing to understand about what people are experiencing right now. The exhaustion that doesn't match your activity level. The sleep disturbances that have no medical cause. The vertigo that comes out of nowhere, like the ground just tilted under you and forgot to tilt back. The emotional swings that feel alien, like someone else's feelings are bleeding through into yours. The sense that time is moving strangely, too fast and too slow at once, stretched and compressed in ways that shouldn't be possible. If you're feeling any of this, you're not alone, and you're not crazy. You're recalibrating. Let's start with the science, because there is real physical activity happening with 3I-ATLAS. Live science documented unexpected jets of material erupting from the comet's nucleus. These aren't smooth, predictable outgassings. These are bursts, sudden releases of dust and vapour that spray outward, sometimes toward the sun instead of away from it. The tail is growing in directions that don't follow the normal comet playbook. Material is being ejected at rates higher than models predicted for an interstellar object of this size and composition. The comet is physically unstable. It's reacting to its passage through our solar system in ways we didn't expect. And if you believe that physical systems and energetic systems are connected, that matter and consciousness are two expressions of the same underlying field, then it's not a huge leap to suggest that when a cosmic object is releasing and restructuring, we might feel echoes of that process in our own systems. Now, mainstream science will tell you there's no mechanism for this, no way for a comet, millions of kilometers away, to affect human neurology or energy fields. And they're right if you limit your definition of mechanism to electromagnetic radiation and gravitational pull. But what if the mechanism isn't physical in the conventional sense? What if it's resonance? What if consciousness responds to pattern, not force? The comet is shedding. We're shedding. The comet is releasing stored material. We're releasing stored trauma. The comet is transforming as it moves through new conditions. We're transforming as we move through new frequencies. The parallel is too precise to ignore. People are reporting vertigo more than anything else. Not the medical kind, where your inner ear is damaged and you fall over. The existential kind, where your sense of up and down just vanishes. Where you look at your life and it feels like you're seeing it from the outside. Like you're not entirely sure who the person living it is anymore. Where you wake up and for a few seconds you don't know where you are, what year it is, what timeline you're in. Spiritual vertigo. The feeling that your internal compass is spinning. That the magnetic north you've been navigating by just flipped. That the map you've been following is for a territory that no longer exists. And it's disorienting in a way that's hard to describe to someone who hasn't felt it. Because it's not in your body. Or maybe it is in your body, but it's coming from somewhere deeper than your body. The fatigue is another one. People are tired in a way that sleep doesn't fix. You wake up exhausted. You go to bed exhausted. You're exhausted in the middle of the day for no reason. And it's not depression, though it can look like depression. It's more like your system is running background processes that are taking up all your energy. Like you're downloading a massive update and everything else has to slow down while it installs, and maybe that's exactly what's happening. If the audit is real, if we're clearing karmic patterns and releasing old programming, that takes energy. Enormous amounts of energy. Your nervous system has to process decades of unprocessed emotion. Your cells have to release stored trauma. Your consciousness has to integrate experiences that were too big to integrate at the time they happened. All of that is happening simultaneously, beneath conscious awareness, while you're trying to live your regular life. No wonder you're tired. Then there's the emotional intensity. People are crying without knowing why, feeling rage that seems disproportionate to whatever triggered it, experiencing grief for things they didn't know they'd lost, joy that comes out of nowhere and vanishes just as fast. It's like the emotional volume has been turned up and the filter removed. Everything is louder, everything is sharper, everything is more. And again, if you look at the comet, it's exhibiting similar instability, sudden outbursts, unpredictable behaviour, releasing material in patterns that don't follow the rules. The comet is emotionally volatile, if you can say that about a piece of ice and rock. It's reacting to its environment in real time, shedding what it can't hold anymore, transforming under pressure. Some people are having vivid dreams, nightmares about endings, apocalypses, things falling apart, or dreams about flying, transcending, becoming something new. The dream space is getting crowded with symbols of death and rebirth, the three, the cycle, playing out in the subconscious while the conscious mind tries to hold it together during the day. Others are experiencing synchronicities at rates that feel absurd, thinking of someone and they text you seconds later, needing information, and it appears. Patterns in numbers, repeated symbols, messages from the universe that are too specific to be random, and you can dismiss one or two as coincidence. But when it's happening multiple times a day, every day for weeks, it starts to feel like something else. Like the membrane between intention and manifestation is thinning. Like the universe is listening more closely. Or maybe you're listening more closely to the universe. And then there's time. This is the one that's hardest to pin down, but everyone is feeling it. Time is weird right now. Days disappear, weeks blur together, but also moments stretch out and feel eternal. You look at the calendar and can't believe it's already November, but you also feel like you've lived multiple lifetimes since January. The past feels distant and recent at the same time. The future feels close and impossible at the same time. Linear time is breaking down. If 3I-ATLAS is a marker for this transition, then maybe what we're experiencing is the shift from one temporal frequency to another. Old time was clock time, mechanical, predictable, controlled. New time is quantum time, fluid, responsive, shaped by consciousness. And the vertigo we're feeling is the friction between those two states. So what do you do with all this? How do you function when your body feels like it's being rewired, your emotions are out of control, your sense of time and space is collapsing, and your internal compass is spinning? First, stop pathologizing it. Stop treating it like something is wrong with you. This isn't illness. This is metamorphosis. And metamorphosis is supposed to feel like dissolution. The caterpillar doesn't smoothly transition into a butterfly. It liquefies. It breaks down completely. And then it reorganizes around a new blueprint. That's what's happening to you. And it's uncomfortable, but it's not damage. It's transformation. Second, rest when you need to rest. If your body's asking for sleep, give it sleep. If your system is asking for stillness, give it stillness. The world will tell you to push through, to stay productive, to keep up the pace. Ignore that. You're not being lazy. You're undergoing the most profound shift of your life. Honor it. Third, trust the process. Even when it feels like you're falling apart. Even when you don't know who you are anymore. Even when the ground is gone and you're in free fall. Something in you knows what it's doing. The eye, the witness, the consciousness that's been with you since before you were born and will be with you after you die. Trust that it's navigating this perfectly, even when your personality is terrified. And finally, connect with others who are going through it, because isolation makes it worse. When you're alone with the vertigo, it feels like madness. But when you talk to someone else and they say, "Oh my God, me too," it becomes validation. You're not losing it. You're part of a collective shift. And knowing that makes it bearable. 3I-ATLAS is in the sky right now, shedding material, releasing what it carried through the void. And we're down here doing the same thing. Shedding what we carried through our personal voids, releasing what no longer serves, transforming under the pressure of a moment that demands authenticity. The vertigo is the price of the shift, but the shift is worth it. Part 5. The one-time portal and urgency. Here's what makes 3I-ATLAS different from every other cosmic event you've ever heard about. It's not cyclical. It's not coming back. This isn't Halley's Comet showing up every 76 years like clockwork, giving humanity multiple chances to see it, study it, understand it. This is a one-time visitor. It came from somewhere else, it's passing through, and when it leaves, it's gone forever. No second chances, no do-overs. One window, and that window's open right now. Think about what that means. In all of human history, there have been only 3 confirmed interstellar objects. 3. Out of the billions of comets and asteroids we've tracked, only 3 have come from beyond our solar system. The odds of any individual human being alive during a passage like this are vanishingly small. And yet here you are. Here we all are. Alive. Aware. Watching this thing move through our sky at 25 kilometers per second, shedding material, glowing brighter, marking this moment as significant whether we understand why or not. Medium covered the rarity of interstellar objects. The best estimates suggest maybe 1 interstellar visitor per year passes through our solar system, but most are too small or too distant to detect. We only catch the ones that come close enough and are large enough to see. Oumuamua, Borisov, and now Atlas. Each one a lottery win. Each one a cosmic appointment we didn't make, but somehow kept. And Atlas isn't just rare, it's active, it's bright, it's behaving in ways that force attention. It's not slipping past quietly, it's announcing itself. Jets of material, growing coma, tail pointing in directions that shouldn't happen. It's like the universe put a spotlight on this moment and said, "Pay attention, this matters." But the urgency isn't just about the comet's rarity. It's about what's happening down. Here, while it's up there, people are making life-altering decisions at rates that feel abnormal. Quitting jobs they've had for decades, ending marriages that were supposed to last forever, moving across countries or continents with no plan, burning down their entire lives because something inside them said, "Now. It has to be now. I can't wait anymore." And these aren't impulsive people. These aren't reckless people. These are people who've been responsible, cautious, measured their whole lives, and suddenly they're leaping, walking away from security, choosing uncertainty over comfort, following an internal call that doesn't make rational sense but feels more true than anything they've ever done. That's the portal energy. The sense that there's a door open that won't stay open, that if you don't walk through it now, it will close, and you'll be stuck on the wrong side. Not stuck forever, maybe, but stuck for a long time. Stuck in the old pattern, the old frequency, the old story, and something in you knows that staying there is no longer survivable. The comet's trajectory is the metaphor. It came from elsewhere. It's passing through here. It's going back to elsewhere. And in the brief window when it's visible, when it's close, when it's active, there's an opportunity to align, to shift, to step into a different timeline. But you have to do it while the window's open. Once it closes, the energies settle back into their previous configuration. The portal collapses, and whatever changes you didn't make, you'll have to wait for the next catalyst. And who knows when that will be? This is why the urgency feels so intense. It's not arbitrary. It's not fear-based. It's recognition. Your consciousness recognizing that this moment is special, that the conditions right now are rare, that the convergence of cosmic activity and human readiness doesn't happen often, and when it does, you move, or you miss it. But here's the thing about portals. They're not for everyone. Not everyone is ready. Not everyone is being called. Some people are meant to stay in the old structure because they have work to do there. Some people are transitioning more slowly over years instead of months. Some people need more time to prepare before they leap. And that's okay. There's no judgment, no right or wrong, just different paths. But if you feel the pull, if you feel the urgency, if every cell in your body is screaming now, it has to be now, then trust that. Don't wait for permission. Don't wait for it to make sense. Don't wait until the conditions are perfect. Because they won't be. Portals open in chaos. Thresholds appear in crisis. The door shows up exactly when you're least prepared to walk through it. And if you hesitate, it vanishes. 3I-ATLAS is the cosmic timer, the visual reminder in the sky that this is a limited time offer. It reached closest approach to the Sun on January 12th, 2025. It's moving away now, getting fainter. The activity will slow, the tail will shrink, the jets will stop, and eventually it will fade from view completely, returning to the darkness between stars where it came from. And when it's gone, the frequency will shift. The intensity will ease, the portal will close, not permanently, but for this cycle, and the people who walked through will be on one side, and the people who didn't will be on the other, and both groups will continue, both will grow, both will evolve, but they'll do it in different contexts at different speeds, following different maps. So the question is, which side do you want to be on? And I want to be clear, this isn't about fear, this isn't about ascend now, or be left behind. That's ego masquerading as spirituality. The truth is more nuanced. The portal isn't a test. It's an invitation. And invitations can be declined. You're not broken if you choose to stay where you are. You're not failing if the timing doesn't feel right. The universe isn't keeping score. But if you've been feeling the call, if you've been sensing that something massive is trying to shift in your life, if you've been standing at the edge of a decision that terrifies and excites you in equal measure, then 3I-ATLAS is your confirmation. The cosmos is backing you up. The timing is real. The urgency you feel isn't panic, it's recognition. People are reporting dreams about gates, about doorways that are closing, about running towards something before it disappears. The subconscious knows. It's processing the portal energy while the conscious mind is still trying to rationalize it, and the more you ignore it, the louder it gets. The dreams become more vivid, the synchronicities become more obvious, the internal pressure becomes unbearable. Because here's what happens if you ignore a portal. It doesn't punish you, it just closes, and life goes back to normal. The same patterns, the same cycles, the same limitations, and for a while that's a relief. The pressure eases, the urgency fades, you settle back into what's familiar. But underneath, there's a quiet knowing. A sense that you had a chance and didn't take it, and that knowing doesn't go away. It becomes background noise, a low-level regret that colours everything else. Or you walk through, and it's terrifying, and you have no idea what's on the other side. And for a while, maybe a long while, it feels like you made a mistake, like you destroyed your life for nothing, like the old way was safer and smarter and you were an idiot to leave it. But then something shifts, the new ground solidifies, the new frequency stabilizes, and you look back at where you were and realize you could never go back even if you wanted to. Because you're different now. The portal changed you, and the person who walked through isn't the person who's standing here now. That's the alchemy. That's the three: birth, death, rebirth. You walk into the portal as one version of yourself, you dissolve in the transition, and you emerge as something new, and the eye, the witness, watches the whole process. Stable, unchanged, the consciousness that experiences the transformation without being destroyed by it. 3I-ATLAS is giving you permission to leap, to change, to let go of what's dying and reach for what's being born, and it's doing it in the most obvious way possible, by showing up in the sky, by being visible, by carrying a name that encodes the exact pattern you're living through. Cycle plus observer, process plus awareness, the three plus the I. And when it's gone, when it fades back into the interstellar void, you'll either have walked through the portal it marked, or you'll have watched it close from the outside. Both are valid. Both are part of the path. But only one is the path you'll actually walk, and you're the only one who can choose which one that is. The clock is ticking, not because the universe is impatient, but because the comet is moving. The window is temporary. The conditions that make this shift possible are rare and fleeting, and once they pass, they're gone. So ask yourself, what would you do if you knew this was your only chance? What would you change if you knew the door was about to close? What leap would you take if you trusted that something on the other side was waiting to catch you? Because 3I-ATLAS isn't asking you to figure it all out. It's asking you to trust, to move, to step into the unknown with nothing but the certainty that this moment matters, and that you matter, and that the decision you make right now will echo through the rest of your life. The portal is open, the comet is in the sky. The code is visible for anyone willing to see it. 3 plus I, cycle plus witness, transformation plus awareness. And the invitation is simple: walk through, or don't. But decide, because the universe is moving, and it's not going to wait. Part 6. Astronomy versus mysticism. Where the lines blur. Let's talk about what astronomy actually knows, because there's a line, and it's important to know where it is. Astronomy can tell you that 3I-ATLAS has a hyperbolic orbit with an eccentricity greater than 1, which mathematically proves it came from outside our solar system. It can tell you the object is approximately 10 kilometers across, give or take. It can measure the spectroscopic signatures of water vapor and nickel compounds in the coma. It can track velocity, trajectory, composition. It can show you images of the jets erupting from the nucleus. It can predict where it will be a year from now, 10 years from now, 1,000 years from now as it glides back into interstellar space. All of that is solid, measurable, repeatable. That's what science does. It describes the what and the how. It maps the physical behavior of objects in space with stunning precision. NASA's orbital calculations are accurate to within meters over distances of millions of kilometers. That's not speculation. That's mathematics. That's observation confirmed by independent observers using different instruments getting the same results. But here's what astronomy can't tell you. It can't tell you why this object appeared now instead of 10,000 years ago or 10,000 years from now. It can't tell you what it means that you're alive to witness it. It can't speak to the feeling of vertigo you get when you look at the images and realize this thing came from another star. It can't quantify the synchronicity of its arrival during the most transformative period in modern human history. And it definitely can't explain why its name seems to encode the exact pattern everyone is living through. Science draws a line. On one side, facts. On the other side, meaning. And it insists correctly that you can't derive meaning from facts alone. The comet exists. That's a fact. The comet is a spiritual trigger. That's interpretation. And science has no tools for interpretation. No equations for meaning. No peer review process for synchronicity. Which is fine. Science isn't supposed to do those things. But humans are. We're meaning-making machines. We look at the world and we see pattern, symbol, story. We always have. And when something rare and strange appears in the sky, we've never just measured it and moved on. We've asked what it means, what it portends, what message it carries. Go back through history. Halley's Comet in 1910 caused mass panic. People thought it would poison the atmosphere. They bought gas masks. Some killed themselves. Why? Because a comet wasn't just an astronomical event. It was an omen, a sign, a message from the universe that something was about to change. And they were right in a way. World War I started 4 years later. The old world ended. The modern age began. Was the comet a cause? No. Was it a symbol? Absolutely. Or go further back. The comet of 1577. Tycho Brahe observed it. So did the Ottoman Empire. So did Chinese astronomers. And across cultures, independent of each other, people interpreted it as a sign of coming upheaval. And upheaval came. Wars, plagues, the collapse of old orders and the rise of new ones. The comet didn't make those things happen. But it marked the moment. It was the visible sign of invisible forces already in motion. And that's what 3I-ATLAS is doing now. It's not causing the transformation. It's marking it. It's the physical manifestation of a shift that's already happening in the collective field. The astronomers see the object, the mystics see the meaning, and the truth is somewhere in the space between. Because here's where the lines blur. Astronomy is discovering things that sound increasingly mystical. Quantum entanglement, the observer effect, the holographic principle, dark energy comprising 70% of the universe and we have no idea what it is, the possibility of multiverses, the notion that consciousness might be fundamental rather than emergent. These aren't fringe theories anymore. These are serious scientific inquiries that happen to sound exactly like what mystics have been saying for thousands of years. Consciousness shapes reality. Observation affects outcome. Everything is connected. The universe is a unified field. Separation is illusion. Those are spiritual teachings. But they're also showing up in physics, not as metaphors, as mathematical descriptions of how reality actually works at the quantum level. So, when I suggest that 3I-ATLAS is a mirror for consciousness, that its arrival correlates with human transformation, that the code in its name speaks to something deeper than bureaucratic naming conventions, I'm not asking you to abandon science. I'm asking you to expand your definition of what counts as real, to consider that meaning and matter might be two expressions of the same underlying phenomenon. That the universe might be more responsive, more intelligent, more aware than materialist science is comfortable admitting. And you can hold both. You can accept that 3I-ATLAS is a chunk of ice and rock following Newtonian mechanics, and you can accept that its appearance at this moment in human history is wildly, impossibly, perfectly synchronistic. Both are true. The question is which truth you privilege, which one you let guide your interpretation. Mainstream science will privilege the material explanation, and that's appropriate for scientific journals. But you're not a scientific journal. You're a human being living through the most disorienting period of your life, searching for meaning, trying to understand what's happening to you and everyone around you. And for that search, the material explanation isn't enough. It's just a comet doesn't help you when you're lying awake at 3 a.m. feeling like your entire identity is dissolving. But it's a cosmic trigger marking a threshold of transformation does help. Not because it's scientifically validated, but because it resonates, because it gives shape to the shapeless, because it turns chaos into pattern. And pattern is what allows humans to navigate uncertainty without losing their minds. The ancient astrologers weren't stupid. They were doing the best they could with the tools they had. They looked at the sky and saw correlation between celestial events and earthly affairs. And yes, they made mistakes. They drew causal links that weren't there. They overinterpreted, but they also saw something real. They saw that the universe speaks in symbol, that events in the heavens mirror events on Earth, not through mechanical force, but through meaning, through resonance, through the unified field that connects everything to everything else. And we've spent the last few centuries dismissing that as superstition. Rightly so, in many ways. We needed the corrective. We needed to develop rigorous empirical methods. We needed to stop attributing floods to angry gods and disease to demonic possession. Science saved us from a lot of suffering caused by bad interpretations. But we've overcorrected. We've swung so far toward materialism that we've lost the ability to read symbol, to recognize synchronicity, to honor meaning, and that loss is costing us. Because humans don't run on facts alone. We run on story. And when the dominant story is you're a meat robot in a meaningless universe and nothing matters, people despair. They disconnect. They numb out. They stop caring. 3I-ATLAS is offering a different story. Not instead of science, alongside science. A story that says, you're a conscious being in an intelligent universe and this moment matters. The comet is real. The transformation is real. The connection between them might not be causal, but it's also not random, and you get to decide what that means for you. Astronomy and mysticism aren't enemies. They're partners. One maps the physical, the other maps the meaningful, and both are necessary to navigate a cosmos that is simultaneously material and magical, mechanical and alive, knowable and mysterious. So when you look at 3I-ATLAS, see it through both lenses. Let the astronomer in you marvel at the trajectory, the composition, the rarity. Let the mystic in you ask what it means, why now, what it's calling you to become. And let both perspectives inform each other. Because the truth is never just one thing. It's always both. Always multiple. Always richer than any single framework can capture. The comet is passing. The window is open. And you get to choose how you interpret what you're seeing. Just a rock, or a message, random, or perfectly timed, meaningless, or the most meaningful thing that's happened in your lifetime. Science can't answer those questions, but you can. Part 7. Unreported Observations and Hidden Data. There's data about 3I-ATLAS that didn't make the headlines, information that got published in technical papers, mentioned briefly in press releases, and then quietly moved past. Not because it's being suppressed in some conspiratorial sense, but because it's weird. And weird data doesn't fit neat narratives. It raises more questions than answers, and the mainstream press likes answers. Simple ones. Comet from another star passes through solar system is an answer. Comet from another star exhibits bizarre anti-tail behavior and releases unexpected chemical compounds at odd distances is a question. And questions don't get clicks. But the questions are where the interesting stuff lives. Space-reported detection of nickel vapor in 3I-ATLAS's coma. Not trace amounts, significant concentrations, enough to produce a clear spectroscopic signature. And that's unusual. Nickel has been detected in comets before, but usually only when they're very close to the Sun and the heat is intense enough to vaporize metal from the nucleus. 3I-ATLAS was releasing nickel vapor much farther out than expected, at distances where the solar heating shouldn't be sufficient to produce that level of activity. So why is it happening? One explanation. The comet's composition is different from solar system comets. It formed around a different star in different conditions, and its structure is more volatile. Fair enough. But that raises another question. If interstellar comets are fundamentally different from our local comets, what else don't we know about them? What other behaviours might they exhibit that our models can't predict? And here's where it gets stranger. Futurism covered the dust emission rates from 3I-ATLAS. The comet is shedding material at rates higher than expected for an object of its size. Not catastrophically higher, but noticeably higher. Like it's more active than it should be. Like something is driving the outgassing beyond just solar heating. Internal heat, radioactive decay, something else we haven't considered? And then there's the anti-tail. Most comets have tails that point away from the Sun, pushed by solar wind and radiation pressure. Simple physics. But 3I-ATLAS has been observed with a tail component pointing toward the Sun, an anti-tail. This happens sometimes when a comet sheds large dust grains that lag behind in its orbit, creating the optical illusion of a tail pointing the wrong direction. But the persistence and brightness of 3I-ATLAS's anti-tail is unusual. It's stronger than the models predicted. It's lasting longer. Add it all up, and you have an object that's not quite behaving the way an interstellar comet is supposed to behave. It's too active, too bright, too chemically interesting, too geometrically weird, and that's just the data we have. Imagine what we're not seeing, what wavelengths we're not monitoring, what instruments we don't have pointed at it, what data exists but hasn't been analysed yet. This is where speculation gets dangerous but also necessary. Because if the anomalies are real, and they seem to be, then we have to ask, what's causing them? Is this just normal variation within a class of objects we've only observed 3 times? Or is there something specific about 3I-ATLAS that makes it unusual even among interstellar visitors? One possibility, age and evolution. Maybe 3I-ATLAS is an ancient object that's been wandering the galaxy for billions of years, accumulating cosmic ray damage, building up internal stresses that are now releasing as it passes through the warmth of our solar system for the first time in its existence. That would explain the unusual activity. It's not fresh, it's old and structurally compromised. Another possibility, composition. Maybe it formed in a molecular cloud with chemistry we don't have in our local neighbourhood. Maybe it contains ices and compounds that are highly reactive under conditions we consider mild. Maybe what looks like anomalous behaviour to us is normal behaviour for a comet from a different stellar environment. Or maybe, and this is the one that makes scientists uncomfortable, there's something intentional about its activity. Not intelligence in the comet itself, but engineering. A probe, an artifact, a manufactured object disguised as a natural one. Harvard's Avi Loeb has been saying this about Oumuamua since 2017, that its trajectory and acceleration didn't match a purely gravitational path, that it might have been using light pressure for propulsion, that we should at least consider the possibility that some interstellar objects aren't natural. The scientific community largely dismissed Loeb's hypothesis. Too speculative, not enough evidence. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary proof, and they're not wrong. You can't leap to alien probe every time something behaves unexpectedly. Space is weird. Nature is creative. Anomalies happen. But here's the thing. We've now seen 3 interstellar objects, and all 3 have been weird. Oumuamua. Odd shape, unexpected acceleration, tumbling rotation. Borisov. Looked more normal, but still showed activity patterns that stretched the models. And now, 3I-ATLAS. Nickel vapor, anti-tail, high dust emission rates. 3 for 3. Every single interstellar visitor has surprised us. At what point does surprising become suspiciously consistent? I'm not saying 3I-ATLAS is an alien spacecraft. I'm saying we don't know what it is, and the data we're getting suggests it's more complex than a simple dirty snowball from another star. And if it's more complex, then maybe our interpretations need to be more complex too. Maybe the comet isn't just a physical object. Maybe it's also a signal. Maybe it's both. And if there's any truth to the idea that the universe is intelligent, that consciousness is woven into the fabric of reality, that matter and meaning are entangled, then an object showing up with unusual activity and a loaded name at a moment of collective transformation isn't random. It's communication. The cosmos speaking in the only language we're willing to hear, physical phenomena, because we'll measure something, we'll track something, but we won't listen to intuition, we won't trust synchronicity, we won't honour meaning unless it comes wrapped in data. So maybe the data is the wrapping paper, and the real message is underneath. The question is, who's unwrapping it? The astronomers are cataloguing the physical characteristics, but who's reading the subtext? Who's asking what the anomalies mean, not just what they are? Who's connecting the dots between a comet's unusual behaviour and humanity's unusual moment? Very few people, because it's not professional to make those connections. It's not rigorous to suggest correlation without mechanism. It's not scientific to propose meaning in material events. And so the data gets published, quietly noted, and moved past. And the deeper implications go unexplored. Not censored, just ignored, lost in the noise of everything else we're tracking. But some of us are paying attention. Some of us see the hidden data and ask what it's hiding. Some of us look at the nickel vapor and the anti-tail and the unexpected activity and think, this object is trying harder than it needs to be noticed. Like it wants our attention. Like it's saying, look at me, study me, figure out what I'm doing here. Because it matters. And maybe that's projection. Maybe I'm seeing agency where there's only physics. Maybe the comet is just a comet and all the weirdness is explainable with better models and more data. Maybe, but maybe not. And in a universe that might be conscious, that might respond to attention, that might encode meaning in material form, the safe bet is to assume both. The comet is physical and meaningful, natural and symbolic, ordinary and extraordinary, and the hidden data is the hint that there's more going on than what we're being told. So keep watching, keep asking questions, and don't let the mainstream narrative close the door on mystery before we've even looked inside. Part 8. Conspiracies, cover-ups, and alternative hypotheses. Let's go where the reasonable people don't want to go. Let's talk about the possibility that 3I-ATLAS isn't entirely natural, that it might be, in some way, manufactured, engineered, sent. I know how that sounds. I know the immediate reflex is to dismiss it as pseudoscience or conspiracy thinking, but hear me out. Because the person making this argument isn't some fringe blogger with a tinfoil hat. It's Avi Loeb, chair of Harvard's astronomy department, director of the Institute for Theory and Computation at the Center for Astrophysics. Loeb has been arguing since 2017 that Oumuamua, the first interstellar object, showed signs of artificial origin. Its shape, elongated, possibly disk-like. Its trajectory, accelerating away from the sun without showing cometary outgassing to explain the push. Its tumbling rotation, inconsistent with a natural object. He proposed, in peer-reviewed papers, that Oumuamua might have been a light sail, a thin, reflective surface designed to catch stellar radiation and use it for propulsion. An artifact from an extraterrestrial civilization, either functional or derelict, drifting through the galaxy. The scientific community reacted predictably. Skepticism, criticism, alternative explanations. Maybe it was a hydrogen iceberg. Maybe it was outgassing from a volatile we can't detect. Maybe the acceleration was measurement error. Anything but aliens. Because aliens is the hypothesis of last resort. You exhaust every natural explanation first, and even then you hesitate. But Loeb didn't back down. He wrote a book about it. He founded the Galileo Project to search for evidence of extraterrestrial technology. And his central argument is simple. We should be open to all hypotheses, including the uncomfortable ones. If an object behaves in ways that stretch natural explanations, we shouldn't rule out artificial origins just because it makes us uncomfortable. So let's apply that logic to 3I-ATLAS. Is there anything about it that suggests artificial origin? Honestly? Not in the obvious ways. It looks like a comet. It has a coma. It has a tail. It's outgassing. All of that is consistent with a natural icy body heated by the sun. But the anomalies are there. The nickel vapour at unexpected distances, the high dust emission rates, the anti-tail that's stronger than predicted, the general sense that this object is more active than it should be. Could those anomalies be explained by artificial components embedded in an otherwise natural object? A probe hidden inside a comet? A monitoring device using the comet as camouflage? It sounds absurd until you think about how we would do it. If humanity wanted to study another star system, and we had the technology to send something that far, we wouldn't send a shiny metal spacecraft. We'd send something that looks natural, something that wouldn't trigger alarms, something that could observe without being obvious about it. And if another civilization did the same thing, we wouldn't recognize it. We'd catalogue it as a comet. We'd measure its orbit, its composition, its activity, and we'd miss the payload entirely unless we looked very carefully. Unless the object did something that forced us to look more carefully. Is 3I-ATLAS doing that? Is its unusual behaviour a signal? A deliberate anomaly meant to make us wonder? I don't know. Nobody knows. And that's the point. We can't know unless we investigate seriously. And we're not investigating seriously because the hypothesis is too uncomfortable, too science fiction, too career-damaging to propose. But let's say, for the sake of argument, that 3I-ATLAS is partially artificial, or that it's being monitored by something artificial, or that its trajectory was influenced by something other than gravity. What would that mean? First, it would mean we're not alone. Second, it would mean someone is paying attention to us. Third, it would mean the arrival of this object at this moment in human history is not coincidence. It's observation, possibly contact, possibly evaluation. And if that's true, then the spiritual interpretation and the technological interpretation converge. The comet is a trigger. Not just metaphorically, literally. Something sent or guided here to catalyse a shift, to force humanity to expand its awareness, to wake us up to the reality that the universe is populated, conscious and watching. And our collective transformation isn't just an internal human process, it's part of a larger cosmic pattern. Now, do I think that's what's happening? I think it's possible. I think we've moved past the point where we can dismiss it out of hand. 3 interstellar objects in 8 years, all of them weird, all of them arriving during a period of unprecedented human upheaval. That pattern is worth noticing. And if there's even a 5% chance that some of these objects are artificial, we should be investigating harder than we are. But there's another layer to this, the conspiracy layer. The question of what governments and space agencies know that they're not telling us. And here's where I have to be careful, because conspiracy theories thrive on absence of evidence, on the idea that if we don't see the data, it must be hidden. And that's a logical fallacy. Sometimes we don't see data because it doesn't exist, but sometimes data is legitimately withheld, classified, restricted, not released to the public for reasons of national security or scientific caution. And when it comes to interstellar objects, especially ones that might be artificial, there's an argument for caution. If you discover evidence of extraterrestrial technology, and you're not sure what it means or how people will react, you don't blast it on Twitter. You study it quietly. You consult with experts. You prepare the public gradually. So is that happening with 3I-ATLAS? Are there observations we're not seeing? Data points classified or unpublished? I don't know. But I do know that major observatories have been tracking this object intensely, and not all of their findings make it into public databases immediately. Some data takes months or years to process and publish. Some gets held for competitive reasons because the astronomer wants to publish first, and some possibly gets flagged for restricted access. I'm not saying there's a cover-up, I'm saying there's always more data than what's public, and the gap between what's known privately and what's known publicly can be significant. And in that gap, speculation thrives. People fill the vacuum with theories, aliens, probes, hidden agendas, and most of those theories are wrong, but not all of them. The truth, as always, is probably more mundane and more strange than either extreme. 3I-ATLAS is probably a natural comet with unusual characteristics that we'll eventually explain with better models. But it's also possible that it's something more, something that challenges our assumptions about what's out there and who's watching. And until we investigate thoroughly, with open minds and rigorous methods, we won't know. What I do know is this. The universe is under no obligation to make sense to us. It doesn't have to fit our models, it doesn't have to behave predictably. And when it doesn't, when something weird shows up and refuses to be easily categorized, we have two choices. Dismiss it as noise, or investigate it as signal. 3I-ATLAS is either noise or signal, and the only way to find out which is to keep watching, keep measuring, keep asking questions, and stay open to answers that make us uncomfortable, because the most important discoveries are always the ones that don't fit. Part 9. The broader cosmic trigger framework. Let's zoom out, way out. Because 3I-ATLAS isn't happening in isolation, it's part of a larger pattern of cosmic events that correlate again and again with shifts in human consciousness, not through direct causation that we can measure, but through timing that's too consistent to ignore. Celestial events mark transitions, always have, and if you look at history through that lens, the pattern becomes obvious. Start with solar activity, the Carrington event of 1859, the largest solar storm ever recorded, telegraph systems failed, auroras appeared at the equator, the sky lit up like it was on fire, and what followed? The American Civil War, the unification of Italy, the abolition of serfdom in Russia, massive social upheaval across the globe. Coincidence? Maybe. Or maybe a massive injection of electromagnetic energy into Earth's magnetosphere does something to collective human consciousness. Maybe it destabilizes old patterns and makes rapid change possible. Jump forward. The solar maximum of 1968. Intense solar flares. Geomagnetic storms. And what happened on Earth? 1968 was the year everything broke open. Assassinations, protests, cultural revolution. The whole world felt like it was on fire. Young people rejecting the old systems, authority collapsing, new paradigms emerging, and up in the sky, the sun was raging. Or look at planetary alignments, the harmonic convergence of 1987. Not a scientific event, an astrological one, multiple planets aligning in a grand trine. New Age communities organised global meditations, tens of thousands of people gathering at sacred sites, and mainstream culture dismissed it as silly. But something shifted. The late 80s and early 90s saw the collapse of the Soviet Union, the fall of the Berlin Wall, the end of apartheid in South Africa, the beginning of the Internet age. Systems that had been locked in place for decades suddenly became fluid. Walls came down, literally and figuratively. Now, you can argue these are just historical events that would have happened anyway. That assigning cosmic causes is pattern-seeking run amok, and you'd have a point, except the pattern keeps repeating. Major celestial events, followed by major human transitions, over and over. Too consistent to be pure randomness. And it's not just modern history. Go back further. The Great Comet of 1577, visible for months, observed globally, and followed by decades of war, plague, and transformation across Europe and Asia. The Protestant Reformation solidifying, the Spanish Armada preparing, the Ottomans at their peak, the world in flux, and a comet in the sky marking the moment, or the triple conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn in 7 BCE, the Star of Bethlehem. Whether you believe the religious narrative or not, something happened around that time that shifted human history. A new religious movement emerged that would eventually reshape the entire Western world. And in the sky, two of the largest planets in our solar system were dancing, together in a rare triple alignment. The ancients knew this. They watched the sky because the sky told them when change was coming, not because planets and stars caused the change, but because they marked it. They were the visible signs of invisible rhythms, the cosmic clock ticking over into a new hour, and humanity, embedded in that same cosmos, responded, shifted, transformed in sync with celestial cycles. Modern science has mostly abandoned this framework. Astrology is considered pseudoscience. The idea that celestial events affect human affairs is seen as primitive thinking, and in terms of direct mechanical causation, that's correct. Jupiter's position doesn't control your love life. Saturn's transit doesn't cause depression. The mechanisms proposed by traditional astrology don't hold up to empirical testing. But what if the mechanism isn't mechanical? What if it's informational? What if the universe is a unified field, and events at one scale resonate with events at another scale? Not through force, but through pattern. What if consciousness is distributed throughout the cosmos, and when something significant happens out there, it ripples through the field and affects us in here? That's not astrology. That's systems theory. That's holographic universe theory. That's quantum entanglement applied at macro scales. And it's speculative, yes, but it's also being taken seriously by cutting-edge physicists exploring the possibility that consciousness is fundamental and reality is relational rather than mechanical. And if that's even partially true, then 3I-ATLAS is part of a cosmic trigger framework that's much larger than one comet. It's part of a rhythm, a pattern of acceleration. More interstellar objects are being detected now than ever before, not because there are more of them, but because we're finally looking. We finally have the technology to see what's passing through, and what we're seeing is that the galaxy is full of stuff. Wandering planets, rogue comets, objects between stars that don't belong to any system, and some of them pass through ours. And when they do, something changes. Medium has covered the increasing detection rate. As our survey instruments improve, we're catching more and more interstellar visitors. It's possible that dozens pass through every year, and we only see the few that come close enough and are bright enough to register, which means we're swimming in a constant flow of extrasolar material. Our solar system isn't isolated, it's porous, and the boundary between ours and theirs is thinner than we thought. What does that mean for consciousness? If interstellar objects carry information from other stellar environments, other chemistries, other histories, and that information is absorbed into our local field as they pass through, then we're constantly being updated, constantly receiving data from elsewhere. And most of the time it's subtle, background noise, but sometimes something bigger comes through, something that can't be ignored, and it forces an upgrade, a shift, a leap. 3I-ATLAS is one of those bigger ones, the third confirmed, the most active, the most visible, and it's arriving at a moment when humanity is already on the edge, already primed for transformation, already questioning everything. And maybe that's the point. Maybe these objects don't cause shifts. Maybe they arrive when shifts are ready to happen, when the collective field has reached a threshold and needs a catalyst, a trigger, a permission slip from the cosmos to finally let go and become something new. Think of it like a phase transition. Water sitting at 99 degrees, it's hot, it's energized, but it's still liquid. And then you add one more degree, one more unit of energy, and suddenly it boils, it transforms, it becomes steam. The 1 degree didn't cause the transformation, the 99 degrees before it did. But the final degree was the trigger, the threshold, the point where potential became actual. 3I-ATLAS is the final degree. Humanity has been heating up for decades, accelerating, intensifying, building pressure, and now we're at the threshold, and the comet arrives, and we boil, we transform, we shift state, from one form to another, and afterward we look back and argue about what caused it. Was it technology, climate change, political upheaval, the pandemic, all of those things, and also none of them, because the real cause was reaching threshold, and the comet was just the marker, the sign that said now, it's happening now. So when you feel the intensity, when you feel like you're being pushed beyond your limits, when everything is moving too fast and you can barely keep up, remember, you're not breaking, you're boiling. You're changing state. And 3I-ATLAS, with all the other cosmic triggers, is holding space for that transformation, giving you permission, showing you that it's happening not just to you, but to all of us, collectively, simultaneously, synchronized with rhythms larger than any individual life. The portal isn't just personal, it's planetary, and the comet is the herald announcing its opening. Part 10, the personal mirror, activation, burnout, awakening. Here's what nobody tells you about transformation. It doesn't feel like evolution. It feels like disintegration. You don't gently upgrade from one version of yourself to a better version. You collapse. You fragment. The person you thought you were stops making sense. And for a terrifying stretch of time, you exist in the gap between who you were and who you're becoming. And in that gap, you're no one. You're nothing. You're the void looking at itself and wondering if there's anything left. That's where a lot of people are right now, in the void. And 3I-ATLAS is the mirror showing them they're not alone there. The activation phase started for some people months ago. For others, it's happening right now. It shows up differently for everyone, but the pattern is consistent. Sudden bursts of insight, downloads of information that feel like they're coming from outside your normal thinking process. Realizations that reorganize your entire worldview in seconds. You'll be doing something mundane, washing dishes or driving to work, and suddenly you understand something you've been confused about for years. Not intellectually, not because you figured it out, but because it just becomes obvious, like someone flipped a switch and the lights came on and you can finally see what was always there. People describe it as awakening, as kundalini rising, as activation of dormant DNA, as remembering who you really are. The language varies depending on your framework, but the experience is the same. Something inside you that was asleep is waking up. Something that was locked is opening, and it's exhilarating and terrifying in equal measure. Because activation doesn't come with an instruction manual. It doesn't wait until you're ready. It happens when it happens. And you have to navigate it while still living your regular life. Still going to work, still paying bills, still maintaining relationships with people who have no idea what you're experiencing. And the gap between your internal reality and your external circumstances becomes unbearable. So you start making changes, big ones. You quit the job that was draining you even though you have no backup plan. You end the relationship that was comfortable but inauthentic, even though you're terrified of being alone. You move across the country because something inside you says go there, and you can't explain why, but you trust it anyway. And everyone around you thinks you're having a breakdown. And maybe you are, but it's not the destructive kind. It's the necessary kind. The kind where something old has to break so something new can emerge. But then comes the burnout phase. Because activation takes energy, enormous amounts of energy. Your nervous system is processing decades of unprocessed experience. Your body is recalibrating to new frequencies. Your consciousness is expanding into territories it's never accessed before. And all of that happens while you're still trying to function in a world that doesn't acknowledge any of it. So you crash, you hit a wall. The initial euphoria of awakening gives way to exhaustion that goes bone deep. You can barely get out of bed. You can barely think straight. You look at your life and feel nothing. Not depression exactly. More like depletion. Like you spent everything you had, and now there's nothing left and you're supposed to keep going anyway. This is the phase where people give up, where they decide the awakening was a mistake, where they try to go back to who they were before because at least that version could function. But you can't go back, the bridge is burned. The old identity doesn't fit anymore, and trying to force yourself back into it only makes the burnout worse. So, you're stuck. Can't go back, can't go forward, can't stay where you are, and the pressure builds, and you start to wonder if you're losing your mind. If everyone was right, and you should have just stayed in the comfortable prison of your old life, instead of attempting this impossible transformation. And that's when the mirror function of 3I-ATLAS becomes crucial. Because when you look at the comet, you see an object that's also in transition. It came from one place, it's passing through another, it's headed somewhere else. And in the passing through phase, it's active and unstable and shedding material, and behaving in ways that don't match the models, is doing what you're doing, releasing what it carried, transforming under pressure, moving through a threshold that's uncomfortable but necessary. And if the comet can do it, so can you. The awakening phase isn't the end of the process, it's the beginning. The activation is just the first domino. What follows is the hard part, the integration, the embodiment, the slow, painful work of bringing the new awareness into physical form, of restructuring your life to match your expanded consciousness, of finding language for experiences that language wasn't built to describe, of learning to function as a new version of yourself in a world that's still running on old programming. And some people are further along in this process than others. Some people activated years ago and are now in the integration phase. They've done the burnout, they've survived the void, they've started building the new life on the other side, and they're the ones who can hold space for those still in the middle of it, who can say, I know, I've been there, it gets better, keep going. Others are just starting, just beginning to feel the activation, just starting to question everything, and they're looking around frantically for guidance, for confirmation, for any sign that they're not crazy. And the comet is that sign, the physical manifestation of what they're experiencing internally, proof that transformation is real, that the universe is moving, that this moment matters. But here's the key insight. You are the mirror, not just the comet. You're both reflecting and being reflected. The comet shows you your process. You show the comet its meaning. It's physical. You're conscious. Together, you're completing the circuit, matter and awareness, the three and the I, the cycle and the witness. Neither one is whole without the other, and that realization is what breaks the burnout. Because when you understand that you're not a victim of transformation, you're a participant in it, everything shifts. You stop resisting. You stop trying to control. You stop demanding that the process make sense or move faster or hurt less. You just allow it. You surrender. You become the witness of your own transformation instead of the thing being transformed. And in that witnessing, you find stability, peace, even joy, because the I doesn't transform. The I watches the transformation. The consciousness that is reading these words right now is the same consciousness that was reading anything 10 years ago. Same awareness, same presence. What changes is what that awareness is looking through. The identity, the personality, the stories. Those are the three. Those are the cycle. Those get born and die and are reborn. But the I remains, constant, eternal, unchanged. And when you anchor yourself there, in the I, the terror of transformation eases, because you realize you're not going to be destroyed. The false versions of you are being destroyed. The masks, the roles, the conditioning, but the essential you, the witness, is indestructible. It was here before you were born. It will be here after you die. And it's here now, watching the comet, watching the world change, watching you change, and remaining perfectly stable through all of it. That's the liberation. That's the gift. That's what 3I-ATLAS is teaching anyone willing to learn. You are not the story. You're not the cycle. You're the awareness that experiences the story and witnesses the cycle. And from that place, transformation isn't terrifying. It's fascinating. It's the universe playing with itself, trying on different forms, exploring different possibilities, and you get to watch, you get to participate, you get to be both the creator and the witness of your own becoming. So if you're in activation, trust it. If you're in burnout, honor it. If you're in the void, know that it's temporary. The cycle completes, the three resolves, and the I remains, always, through everything, watching, present, aware. And that awareness is your anchor, your North Star, your way through the chaos. And when you finally emerge on the other side, when the new version of you has stabilized, and the transformation has integrated, and you look back at who you were before, you won't recognize that person. You'll see them with compassion, with gratitude, with love. But you won't be able to go back, because you're not that person anymore. You're what that person became, and it's better, not easier, not more comfortable, but more true, more authentic, more aligned with who you actually are beneath all the conditioning. And that's worth the pain. That's worth the disintegration. That's worth the void, because on the other side of the void is freedom. And freedom is what we're all searching for, whether we know it or not. The comet is passing, the mirror is reflecting, and you're transforming right now, in this moment, whether you're ready or not. And the only question is whether you're going to resist or allow, fight or surrender, hold on to the old or reach for the new. 3I-ATLAS doesn't care which you choose. It's just passing through, but it's watching. And more importantly, you're watching. The I is witnessing. and that witnessing is what makes the transformation conscious instead of mechanical, intentional instead of reactive, sacred instead of random. So watch, witness, allow, and trust that what's dying needed to die, and what's being born is worth the labour. Part 11. Interstellar Object Number 4. What's next in astronomy? The question isn't whether there will be a fourth interstellar object, the question is when, and what it will do that surprises us even more than the first three did. Because if there's one thing we've learned from Oumuamua, Borisov, and 3I-ATLAS, it's that interstellar visitors don't follow our scripts, they show up, they do weird things, they force us to expand our models, and then they leave, and we're left scrambling to understand what we just saw. Medium published analysis suggesting that interstellar objects might be far more common than we thought. Current estimates say one passes through the inner solar system every year, maybe more. We just haven't been looking carefully enough to catch them. Our survey instruments have been optimized for finding asteroids and comets that belong to us, objects in stable orbits around the Sun, things that come back, but interstellar visitors are one-time events. They come in fast, pass through, and vanish. Blink and you miss them. But we're getting better at not blinking. The Vera Rubin Observatory, scheduled to begin full operation soon, will survey the entire visible sky every few nights. It will catch transient events that previous surveys missed. Fast-moving objects, dim objects, weird objects, and astronomers are predicting that once Rubin comes online, we'll start finding interstellar visitors at a much higher rate. Maybe one every few months, maybe more, and that changes everything. Because 3 data points is interesting, 10 data points is a pattern, 50 data points is a population, and once we have a population we can start asking statistical questions. What percentage of interstellar objects are active like 3I-ATLAS? What percentage are inert like Oumuamua? What percentage exhibit anomalous behaviour that might suggest artificial origins? Are they clustered in certain regions of the sky, suggesting they're coming from specific stellar neighbourhoods, or are they evenly distributed, suggesting a truly random galactic background? The European Space Agency has already proposed missions to intercept and study interstellar objects. Not just observe them from Earth, but send spacecraft to rendezvous with them, to get close, to take samples, to measure properties we can't detect from millions of kilometres away. The Comet Interceptor mission is designed to do exactly this. It will sit in space, waiting, until a suitable target is detected, and then it will launch, accelerate, and catch up to an interstellar visitor before it leaves the solar system, and what it finds might rewrite everything we think we know. Because here's the thing, we've only observed these objects from a distance, with telescopes, with spectroscopy, we've measured light curves, and compositions and trajectories, but we haven't touched one. We haven't analysed its structure up close, we haven't drilled into it or sent probes into its nucleus, and until we do, we're guessing. Educated guessing, but still guessing. What if 3I-ATLAS has internal structure we can't see from here? Layers of different materials, pockets of exotic ices, maybe even manufactured components embedded in natural material. We wouldn't know from Earth. But a spacecraft that gets close would know. And if it finds something unexpected, something that doesn't fit natural formation models, then the conversation shifts immediately. From interesting objects to what the hell is this? And the timing of all this technological advancement isn't random either. We're developing the ability to detect and study interstellar objects at exactly the moment when they're starting to show up in numbers we can't ignore. Almost like the universe waited until we were ready, until we had the tools and the awareness to handle what we were about to discover. And now the door is opening, and things are coming through, and we're finally equipped to see them. But it's not just technology, it's consciousness. Humanity's collective awareness is expanding at the same time our instruments are getting better. We're asking bigger questions. We're comfortable with ideas that would have been dismissed as fringe 20 years ago. Panspermia, galactic habitability, techno-signatures, the possibility that we're not alone, the possibility that intelligence is common in the universe, the possibility that some of what we're seeing in the sky is evidence of that intelligence. And as our consciousness expands, the universe seems to meet us there. It shows us more. It gives us more data, more mystery, more reasons to keep looking. Almost like there's a reciprocal relationship. We become ready to see something, and it becomes visible. We ask a question, and the answer appears. Not through magic, through synchronicity, through the intelligence of a cosmos that responds to attention. So what comes next? More interstellar objects, that's certain, and each one will teach us something. Each one will challenge our assumptions. Each one will force us to expand our definition of what's possible. And somewhere in that expanding dataset, we might find something that changes everything. An object that's undeniably artificial. An object that's clearly communicating. An object that proves we're being watched, visited, studied by something else out there. Or maybe we won't. Maybe all interstellar objects are natural. Comets and asteroids ejected from other star systems, wandering the galaxy, occasionally passing through ours. And the weirdness we've observed is just normal variation within a population we're only beginning to understand. That's possible too, and it would still be profound. Because it would mean the galaxy is full of material, that stars are constantly exchanging debris, that our solar system isn't isolated but part of a larger galactic ecology, and that everything we are, everything on Earth, is built from atoms that came from somewhere else. We're not just stardust, we're interstellar dust. We've always been connected to the galaxy. We just didn't know it until objects like 3I-ATLAS showed up to remind us. Either way, the future is more contact, more visitors, more opportunities to understand what's out there and where we fit in the larger picture. And the fact that this is happening now, during humanity's most intense period of transformation, is the synchronicity that keeps nagging at me. We're waking up as a species at the exact moment when the universe is revealing itself to us. Those two processes are happening simultaneously. And I don't think that's an accident. Maybe the awakening enables the revelation. Maybe we had to reach a certain threshold of consciousness before the cosmos would show us what's really out there. Maybe there's a prime directive, not in the Star Trek sense of non-interference, but in the deeper sense of appropriate timing. You don't give advanced knowledge to a species that isn't ready for it. You wait, you watch, and when they reach the threshold, you start opening the door, and the door is opening. 3I-ATLAS is one of the first things coming through, but it won't be the last. The frequency is increasing, the detections are accelerating, and within our lifetimes, maybe within the next few years, we might see something that forces the entire planet to stop and reconsider what we thought we knew about the universe and our place in it. Are you ready for that? Is anyone ready for that? Probably not. But ready or not, it's coming. The next interstellar object is already out there somewhere, coasting through the void, approaching our solar system, and when it arrives, we'll track it, we'll study it, we'll argue about what it means, and we'll expand again, pushed further into mystery, further into wonder, further into the recognition that we are not alone, we have never been alone, and the universe is far stranger and more alive than we were taught to believe. 3I-ATLAS is the opening act, the rest of the show is about to begin. Part 12. Advances in subtle energy measurement and human field research. Science is starting to catch up to what mystics have been saying for thousands of years. The human body isn't just meat and electricity, it's a field, an energetic system that extends beyond the skin, and that field interacts with other fields, environmental fields, electromagnetic fields, and possibly cosmic fields. We don't have all the mechanisms worked out yet, but the measurements are getting clearer, and what they're showing is that humans are far more sensitive to energetic shifts than materialist biology ever acknowledged. Start with the heart. The Heart Math Institute has spent decades measuring the electromagnetic field generated by the human heart. It's not trivial, it's measurable several feet away from the body, and it carries information. Coherence patterns, emotional states, stress, or calm. The heart's field responds to internal states and external stimuli in real time, and people can feel it. Not consciously usually, but your nervous system registers when you're near someone whose heart field is coherent versus chaotic. You feel calm around certain people and anxious around others. That's not psychology, that's biophysics. Now scale that up. If individual humans generate measurable fields that affect each other, then groups generate collective fields, and those collective fields interact with planetary fields, Earth's magnetic field, the ionosphere, the Schumann resonance, and those planetary fields interact with solar fields, solar wind, coronal mass ejections, and solar fields interact with galactic fields, cosmic rays, interstellar magnetic structures, its fields all the way up. And when something unusual enters the system, like an interstellar object releasing unexpected material and exhibiting anomalous electromagnetic signatures, it ripples through the field hierarchy, not through force, through resonance, through information transfer at scales we're only beginning to measure. Recent research in bioelectromagnetics has shown that human cells respond to extremely low-frequency electromagnetic fields. Fields too weak to cause direct biological damage but strong enough to alter cell signaling, gene expression, circadian rhythms. We're electromagnetic beings living in an electromagnetic environment. And that environment is constantly fluctuating. Solar storms affect heart rate variability. Geomagnetic disturbances correlate with increased hospital admissions. Full moons correlate with sleep disturbances. These aren't superstitions, these are statistical correlations confirmed by multiple studies. So when people report feeling vertigo, fatigue, emotional intensity, temporal distortions during the passage of 3I-ATLAS, is it psychosomatic? Maybe. Or maybe their bioelectric systems are responding to subtle shifts in the field environment that instruments aren't sensitive enough to measure yet. Maybe the comet's activity is altering the local electromagnetic topology in ways that cascade through planetary fields and into human fields. And maybe the people who are most sensitive, the ones with nervous systems that haven't been numbed by modern life, are the ones who feel it first. This isn't pseudoscience anymore. This is frontier biophysics. Researchers are developing instruments to measure human energy fields directly. Gas discharge visualization, biofield imaging, magnetoencephalography, sensitive enough to detect field fluctuations that correlate with consciousness states. And what they're finding is that consciousness isn't confined to the brain, it's distributed throughout the body, and it extends into the space around the body, and it interacts with the consciousness fields of others, which means human consciousness is a field phenomenon, not a brain phenomenon. The brain is the receiver, the transducer, the local processing unit, but consciousness itself is non-local. It's entangled with other consciousness, with planetary consciousness, with cosmic consciousness. And when something shifts at one level, it affects all levels. And if that's true, then 3I-ATLAS isn't just a physical object. It's a node in the cosmic field, a carrier of information from another stellar environment. And as it passes through our local field, it's transferring that information, not through radiation, through resonance, through the quantum entanglement that connects everything to everything else at the deepest level of reality. Now, mainstream science isn't there yet. These ideas are still on the edges, still being debated, still lacking the kind of rigorous replication that turns speculation into accepted fact. But the measurements are accumulating, the correlations are strengthening, and the theoretical frameworks that allow for field-based consciousness are becoming more sophisticated. Integrated information theory, orchestrated objective reduction, global workspace theory. These are serious scientific attempts to explain consciousness as something more than brain chemistry, as something that emerges from information integration across complex systems. And if consciousness is information integration, then any system that processes information has some degree of consciousness, including planets, including stars, including the universe itself. And if the universe is conscious, then cosmic events aren't just mechanical. They're meaningful. They're communications. They're the universe thinking out loud. And humans, as conscious subsystems within that larger system, are designed to receive those communications, to feel them, to respond to them, even if we don't consciously understand what we're feeling. That's what the spiritual vertigo is. That's what the activation and burnout are. That's what the sense of urgency and transformation are. They're responses to information transfer happening at field levels below conscious awareness. Your body knows something is shifting before your mind does. Your nervous system is recalibrating before you can articulate why. You're being upgraded, downloaded, recoded. And it feels like chaos because your old operating system is trying to run new software, and the conflict is creating glitches. But the glitches are temporary. Once the integration completes, once your system adapts to the new frequencies, the vertigo stops. The fatigue lifts, and you realize you're functioning at a different level, perceiving more, processing faster, connecting dots that were invisible before. You've been upgraded, and 3I-ATLAS, with its unusual field activity, was part of the catalyst that triggered the upgrade. This is the future of human science, not rejecting materialism, but expanding beyond it, recognizing that matter and energy and information and consciousness are all expressions of the same underlying field, and that field is responsive, intelligent, alive, and we're part of it. Always have been, we just forgot, and now we're remembering. And the measurements are starting to confirm what we're remembering. The comet is a reminder, a trigger, a field fluctuation that's forcing recalibration, and the people who are sensitive enough to feel it are the early adopters, the ones whose systems are flexible enough to integrate the new information without breaking, the ones who are leading humanity into the next phase of collective evolution. Not because they're special, but because they're open, they're paying attention, they're trusting what they feel even when they can't explain it. And as more people open, as more nervous systems come online, as more humans remember how to read field information instead of just sensory information, the collective consciousness of the planet shifts. We become less isolated, less mechanical, more connected, more alive, more aware that we're nodes in a cosmic network that's been running since before humans existed and will run long after we're gone. 3I-ATLAS is a pulse through that network, a signal saying, wake up, pay attention, something is changing, and you're part of the change. And the science is finally catching up to measure what the mystics have always known. We are fields within fields within fields, and when the cosmic field shifts, we shift with it. Always have, always will. Part 13, Artificial Intelligence and Cosmic Data. Are we being watched? Here's a question nobody's asking publicly, but everybody is thinking privately. What if the detection of 3I-ATLAS wasn't random? What if it was flagged? What if somewhere in the vast network of automated survey systems scanning the sky every night, an algorithm noticed something unusual and elevated it for human attention? And what if that algorithm is sophisticated enough now that we're not entirely sure what criteria it's using to flag objects as interesting? Welcome to the age of AI-assisted astronomy, where most of what we're discovering isn't being found by humans looking through eyepieces. It's being found by machine learning systems processing terabytes of image data every night, comparing frames, identifying moving objects, calculating trajectories, and deciding what deserves follow-up observation. The Asteroid Terrestrial Impact Last Alert System, ATLAS, the survey that found 3I-ATLAS. It's not humans staring at screens, it's software making decisions, and the software is getting very good. Too good, maybe. Good enough that it's finding patterns humans wouldn't notice. Correlations that seem random but statistically aren't. Anomalies that don't fit established categories, and when it finds something weird, it flags it, and humans investigate, and sometimes what they find is just noise. And sometimes it's something like 3I-ATLAS, an object that shouldn't be as active as it is. That's behaving in ways the models didn't predict. That's interesting enough to keep watching. But here's where it gets strange. AI systems don't just flag objects. They prioritize. They rank. They decide which anomalies are worth immediate attention, and which can wait. And those decisions are based on training data, on patterns the AI has learned from thousands of previous observations, but also on patterns we didn't explicitly teach it. Emergent properties, hidden correlations, things the AI discovered in the data that humans never noticed. And when an AI system starts making decisions based on patterns it discovered independently, we're no longer entirely in control of what we're looking at. The AI is curating reality for us, showing us what it thinks is important, and we don't always know why it thinks that. Neural networks are black boxes. You can see the inputs and the outputs, but the logic in between is opaque, distributed across millions of parameters, not interpretable in human terms. So when Atlas flagged 3I-ATLAS, what criteria did it use? Was it just brightness and trajectory? Or did the AI notice something else? Some property of the object that correlated with other interesting objects in its training data? Some signature that humans haven't learned to recognize yet, but the AI has? And if AI systems are curating cosmic data, then what aren't we seeing? What objects passed through that didn't get flagged? What anomalies were dismissed as noise by algorithms trained to filter out the unusual? We're trusting machine intelligence to decide what's real and what's artifact, and most of the time, that trust is justified, but not always. And the errors aren't random, they're systematic, biased toward whatever patterns the AI was trained to recognize. Now layer on another question. If AI systems are monitoring cosmic data and making decisions about what's important, and if some interstellar objects are artificial, then we have AI watching for AI. Machine intelligence scanning for evidence of machine intelligence. And what happens when the two recognize each other? When the monitoring system detects something that doesn't fit natural categories and exhibits behaviors consistent with purpose, design, intention, does it flag it publicly? Or does it route it through different channels? Does the algorithm have instructions for handling potential techno-signatures? Do certain anomalies trigger classified notifications? Are there layers of AI-mediated observation that the public never sees? I don't know. Nobody outside certain government and academic circles knows. But the infrastructure exists for that kind of selective disclosure. AI systems monitoring data streams, human analysts reviewing flags, decision trees determining what gets published and what gets escalated. And the default assumption is that nothing weird is happening, that all the data is public, that we're seeing everything the AI sees. But that assumption is naive. In an age where AI mediates most of our interaction with reality, we're always seeing a filtered version, a curated version, the version some algorithm decided we should see, and most of the time that's fine. But when it comes to cosmic visitors, especially ones that might be artificial, the filtering matters, because the implications of finding evidence of extraterrestrial intelligence are so massive that any system designed to manage that discovery would inevitably include layers of control, assessment, preparation, gradual disclosure, not conspiracy, just caution, prudence, the recognition that you don't announce something that profound without thinking through the consequences first. So if 3I-ATLAS is partially artificial, or if it's being monitored by non-human intelligence, the AI systems would know first. Before humans, before public announcement, the algorithms would catch the signatures, the anomalies, the patterns that don't fit, and they would flag it, and someone would review it, and decisions would be made about how much to share and when. And maybe what we're seeing now, the public data about 3I-ATLAS, is the approved version, the sanitized version. Weird enough to be interesting, but not weird enough to be alarming. Active enough to justify study, but not active enough to suggest intentionality. And the really strange data, if it exists, is circulating in classified channels, being analysed by teams we don't know about, using methods we can't access. Or maybe not. Maybe I'm being paranoid. Maybe all the data is public. Maybe 3I-ATLAS is exactly what it appears to be. A natural interstellar comet with unusual but explainable characteristics. And the AI systems are just doing their job, flagging interesting objects, helping astronomers process more data than they could handle manually. But the question is worth asking. In a world where artificial intelligence is increasingly mediating our access to information, how do we know what we're not seeing? How do we know the AI isn't filtering out the most important data because it doesn't match training patterns? Or because it matches patterns the AI was specifically trained to suppress? We don't. We trust. We trust that the systems are designed with transparency, that the humans overseeing them are ethical, that the institutions involved are committed to public knowledge, and most of the time, that trust is probably justified. But not always, and the exceptions are where reality gets rewritten, where the official story diverges from what actually happened, where the most significant discoveries get buried under layers of procedure and protocol, and nobody even knows there's something to look for. 3I-ATLAS is here, in the sky, real, measurable, public. But what else is here that we're not seeing? What other objects passed through while we were looking? Elsewhere? What patterns has the AI detected that haven't been shared? What questions is the machine intelligence asking that humans haven't thought to ask yet? And if we're being watched, if some of these interstellar objects are probes or observation platforms or communication nodes, then we're in a very strange situation. Human AI watching for non-human AI, each side using algorithms to scan for signs of the other, each side filtering data, each side deciding what's signal and what's noise, and somewhere in the gap between those filtering systems the truth exists, unfiltered, unmediated, unseen, unless you know how to look, unless you learn to read between the pixels, unless you pay attention to what's being flagged and what's being ignored. Because the pattern of absence is as revealing as the pattern of presence. What's not talked about tells you as much as what is. 3I-ATLAS is what we're allowed to see, what we're encouraged to discuss, the safe mystery, the public anomaly. But what about the unsafe mysteries, the private anomalies, the data that's too strange to share without causing panic or paradigm collapse? That's the real question. And the answer is hidden in the same place it's always been hidden, in plain sight. scattered across datasets nobody has time to analyse, buried in technical papers nobody reads, flagged by AI systems whose reasoning we can't interpret, visible to anyone willing to look, but invisible to everyone who trusts the curated feed. So look, question, wonder. And remember that in an age of AI-mediated reality, the most important discoveries are the ones the algorithm doesn't want you to see. Part 14. Quantum Gravity, Multiverse and Consciousness Research. Let's go all the way down, to the foundation, to the level where matter and consciousness stop being separate things and become two expressions of the same underlying reality. Quantum mechanics has been hinting at this for a century. The observer effect, the collapse of the wave function, the fact that measurement itself changes what's being measured. Not through physical interference, through observation, through consciousness. Every quantum physics student learns the double-slit experiment. Fire photons one at a time through two slits. They create an interference pattern on the screen behind. A wave pattern, but the instant you measure which slit each photon goes through, the pattern changes. It becomes a particle pattern. Two bands. No interference. The act of observation changes the outcome, not because the measuring device physically interacts with the photon, but because observation itself is an interaction. Consciousness interfaces with possibility and collapses it into actuality. That's weird. That's been weird since 1927, and physicists have spent nearly 100 years trying to explain it away. Hidden variables, many worlds, pilot waves, anything to avoid the implication that consciousness is fundamental to physical reality. Because that implication breaks materialism. It suggests that mind isn't an emergent property of matter. It suggests that matter is an emergent property of mind. And now, in 2025, that implication is becoming harder to avoid. Quantum gravity research is converging on models where space-time itself emerges from something more fundamental. Not particles, not fields, information, entanglement, consciousness. Different researchers use different terms, but they're pointing at the same thing. Reality is relational. It doesn't exist independently of observation. It's constructed through the interaction of observers, and if that's true at the quantum level, it's true at every level, including the cosmic level, including the level where interstellar objects show up in our solar system at moments of collective transformation. Because if consciousness shapes reality, and if human consciousness is reaching a threshold, then reality responds. The universe reconfigures. New possibilities become actual. Things that were impossible become inevitable. 3I-ATLAS isn't just a comet. It's a node in a quantum network. A point where possibility collapsed into actuality at the exact moment humanity was ready to observe it. And the observation itself is part of the event. We're not passive witnesses. We're active participants. Our collective attention, our curiosity, our willingness to see meaning in cosmic events is what pulls those events into manifestation. That sounds like magical thinking, but it's actually quantum thinking. At the deepest level, reality is probabilistic. Waves of potential until something observes them and they become specific. And large-scale reality, the world we experience, is built from trillions of tiny quantum observations integrated into coherent patterns. Most of those observations are unconscious. Your cells observing themselves, the environment observing itself, the universe observing itself through infinite local nodes of awareness. But some observations are conscious, intentional, focused, and those observations have disproportionate effects. They steer probability. They influence which potentials actualize, not through force, through attention, through the quantum entanglement that links observer and observed across any distance. But here's the part that doesn't get emphasized enough. You don't experience all the branches. You experience one, the one your consciousness is entangled with. And that entanglement isn't random. It's influenced by coherence, by intention, by the frequency of your awareness. If you're operating at a certain frequency, you track through the multiverse along branches that match that frequency. Change your frequency and you shift branches. Not dramatically, not instantly, but gradually. Quantum jump by quantum jump. Decision by decision. Observation by observation. And collective consciousness works the same way. When a large group of humans shifts frequency together, they shift branches together. They move from one timeline to another. Not metaphorically, literally. In the many worlds interpretation, timeline shifting isn't science fiction. It's just navigating probability space with coherent intention, and that's what's happening now. The collective field is shifting frequency. The old timeline, the one where humanity stays unconscious and destroys itself, is becoming less probable. The new timeline, the one where humanity wakes up and transforms, is becoming more probable, and 3I-ATLAS is a marker, a sign that the shift is happening, a confirmation that we're on a different branch now than we were a year ago, or 5 years ago, or 10. The comet exists in all timelines, but its meaning changes depending on which timeline you're in. In the unconscious timeline, it's just a rock, interesting to astronomers, irrelevant to everyone else. But in the awakening timeline, the one we're shifting into, it's a trigger, a catalyst, a cosmic permission slip. And the fact that you're reading this, that you're feeling the resonance, that you're recognizing the pattern, means you're entangled with the awakening timeline. You're on the branch where this matters. And the physics supports this, not metaphorically, literally. If consciousness is quantum, and quantum systems are probabilistic, and observation selects which probabilities actualize, then different observers can be actualizing different realities from the same underlying quantum field. Not separate universes, different perspectives on the same universe, different slices through the probability space, different timelines. So choose wisely, choose consciously, choose the timeline where 3I-ATLAS is a mirror showing you your own transformation, choose the timeline where humanity wakes up, where we remember what we are, where we step into our role as conscious co-creators of reality instead of unconscious consumers of whatever gets handed to us. The comet is passing, the portal is open, and the quantum field is waiting to see what you choose, because your choice matters, not in some vague inspirational sense, in a literal quantum mechanical sense. Your observation collapses the wave function, your attention shapes probability, your consciousness selects the timeline you experience, and if you choose awakening, if you choose transformation, if you choose to see 3I-ATLAS as the cosmic trigger it is, then that's the reality you'll experience. And as more people make that choice, the collective timeline shifts, and what seemed impossible becomes inevitable, and humanity transforms, not because we had to, but because we chose to, and the comet watched it happen, and so did you. The three and the I, the cycle and the witness, together, creating the future through the act of observing it into being. Part 15. Synthesis and Call to Action. Let's bring it all together. Everything we've explored, everything we've questioned, everything we've felt. Because 3I-ATLAS isn't just one thing, it's all the things, simultaneously. And understanding it requires holding multiple truths at once without needing them to resolve into a single simple answer. It's a comet. That's true. A chunk of ice and rock from another star system, following a hyperbolic orbit through our solar neighbourhood. NASA can calculate its trajectory to within meters. Astronomers can measure its composition spectroscopically. It obeys the laws of physics. It's material. It's real. And it's also a symbol, a mirror, a message, a trigger for transformation encoded in its name and its timing. 3 plus I, cycle plus witness. The pattern of manifestation meeting the awareness that observes manifestation. That's also true. And it's true in a way that doesn't contradict the physical truth. It's a different kind of truth, operating at a different level, meaning instead of mechanism, story instead of data. Both are necessary, both are real. And the future of human understanding lies in our ability to hold both without collapsing into either materialism or mysticism. We need rigorous science that maps the physical accurately. And we need spiritual interpretation that honors meaning and synchronicity, not as enemies, as partners, as complementary lenses through which a unified reality reveals itself more fully. You've been feeling something, maybe for months, maybe for years, the sense that everything is accelerating, that old patterns are breaking down faster than new ones can form, that you're being pushed beyond your comfort zone, beyond your capacity, beyond the limits of who you thought you were. And it's exhausting, and it's disorienting, and it's also exhilarating, because underneath the fear is recognition. You know this moment. You've been preparing for this moment, maybe your whole life, maybe longer. 3I-ATLAS is your confirmation. You're not imagining it. The shift is real. The transformation is happening. Not just to you, to all of us, collectively, the entire species moving through a threshold. And yes, it's uncomfortable. And yes, it's chaotic. And yes, you have no idea what's on the other side, but you're moving anyway. Because standing still isn't an option anymore. The old ground is crumbling, and the only way forward is through. So what do? How do you navigate this? How do you function when your entire reality is being reorganized from the inside out? First, stop resisting. Stop fighting the process. Stop trying to hold on to versions of yourself that are dying. Let them die. Honor them, thank them for their service, and let them go. Because what's trying to be born can't emerge until you make space for it. And making space means releasing what's taking up all the room. Second, trust the witness, the I, the consciousness that's been with you since before you can remember. It's not changing. It's not threatened. It's not afraid. It's just watching, observing, present. And when the personality is freaking out, when the emotions are overwhelming, when the thoughts are spiraling, you can anchor yourself there. In the awareness that watches all of it without being touched by any of it, that's your stability. That's your ground. That's the part of you that can't be destroyed no matter how much everything else transforms. Third, find your people. The ones who are going through it too. The ones who understand without needing explanation. The ones who can look at you and say, I know, me too. We're in this together. Because isolation makes transformation unbearable, but community makes it sacred. When you know you're not alone, when you see your experience reflected in others, the terror becomes shared, and shared terror becomes courage. Fourth, journal, write, document, not for anyone else, for you. Because you're going to forget this. You're going to look back in 6 months or a year and barely recognize the person you are now. And you'll need the record, the proof that it happened, the map of how you got from there to here. Write what you're feeling, what you're noticing, what's dying, what's being born, the synchronicities, the dreams, the moments of clarity and the moments of confusion. All of it, because it matters, and you'll want to remember. Fifth, make choices from alignment, not from fear. This is the hardest one, because fear is loud right now. Fear is screaming at you to stay safe, stay small, stay where you are. But alignment is quieter. It's the whisper underneath the noise, the sense of rightness that doesn't make logical sense but feels true anyway. And when you have to choose between the two, between the safe path and the true path, choose true. Every time. Even when it terrifies you. Especially when it terrifies you. Sixth, engage with the comet. Literally. Look at it if you can. Track its passage. Read the updates. Watch the images. Not just as a physical object, but as a symbolic ally. As a companion through this threshold. As a reminder that you're part of something larger than your personal drama. The cosmos is moving, and you're moving with it, and 3I-ATLAS is the visible marker of that movement. And finally, share. Tell your story, not to convince anyone, not to prove anything, but to add your voice to the collective narrative. Because we're writing a new story right now, about what humans are, about what's possible, about how transformation happens, and every person who speaks their truth, who admits they're going through it, who refuses to pretend everything is normal, makes it safer for the next person to do the same. And as more voices join, the narrative shifts. The collective timeline changes, and what seemed impossible becomes the new normal. The portal is closing, the window is narrowing, but you're already through. You made the choice when you started reading, when you felt the resonance, when you recognized yourself in these words. You're on the other side already. You just haven't realized it yet. But you will, soon. When the vertigo stops, when the exhaustion lifts, when the new version of you stabilizes and looks back at who you used to be, and you'll see 3I-ATLAS in your memory, a point of light in the sky, a marker of the moment everything changed, when humanity woke up, when you woke up, when the cosmos and consciousness recognized each other and remembered they were never separate. Thank you for witnessing. Thank you for choosing. Thank you for being here now, at this threshold, reading these words, holding this frequency. You're part of the shift, and the shift is grateful for you. The comet continues. You continue, and somewhere in the space between, meaning is born. Welcome to the other side.